What's going on, Don't Unfriend Me Nation? I know you're freaking out. There's a lot of people on Trump's side who are saying, look at Iowa, a clear vindication for Donald Trump. Everybody needs to drop out of the race, including Vivek Ramaswamy, who was saying, I'll never drop out 24 hours before, and said you needed to vote for Vivek in order to save Trump, because Trump was going to be a victim of his own demise, and only Vivek could save him. Donald Trump responded that Vivek was a fraud and he shouldn't be voted for, and then not to get distracted and just sick the entire Trump nation on Vivek. And then Vivek dropped out of the race. I told you this guy was just running opposition for Donald Trump, and all along was just grifting for a year. But that's okay. I'm not here to say I told you so. What I'm here to do is to ensure that the mistakes of the past do not replicate themselves in 2024. I'm going to break down the presidential election, but a little bit differently, of what the numbers are saying and why the vice president is important in this race versus all others. Because usually the VP isn't important. I'll walk you through it in just 15 seconds. I'll be right back.
Do you want the truth? Are you tired of being so confused? You feel like you're more f***ed up than the lies on the evening news? Well, just step right in. We can talk about it all as friends. And if you want, we can hug and kiss and make up.
Just realized I had my grumpy cup. I'm not grumpy. I'm in a great mood. Still point, Still-Point, Donald Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy. You may have seen this where Vivek went up for 4 minutes and just went on and on and on and on and on. And it was like he wasn't even running for president. Of course, Donald Trump is going to accept that. He will take that 4% of votes nationally and 9% to 7% in the rest of the state primaries and caucuses. Of course, Donald Trump's smart. Vivek owns a portion of Donald Trump's base, of course. He is a Donald Trump type candidate. He has, even though trashed Donald Trump in his books and other things, and obviously on the world stage in the last few days, has changed course. But it's interesting nonetheless. Now, what does this all mean? Does the vice presidency matter? Because here's the thing. At the end of this, during this portion right here, you started hearing the crowd chant, VP, VP, VP. And no, they're not chanting for Kamala Harris. They're chanting that Vivek should be the VP. And I would advise against it. And it's not just because I have went through Vivek's checkered past. It's for a few reasons. We're going to walk through it together. First, let's go ahead and take a look at the obvious. When you look at the numbers, and you look at the poll numbers in particular, but the results for the 2020 election, you can look that white, no college degree men and women are the largest demographic for Donald J. Trump. And this demographic has been a monumental success in 2016 for him, obviously, with diminishing results in 2018, 2020, 2022, and what is being predicted in 2024. And the reason why is if you take a look at this number, this is the decrease. If you look at the overall kind of control here, Virginia is negative 7.5%. That's the longest outlier over to the right. But if you look at Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada saw a slight uptick, but every other major swing state saw a massive decrease of at least 5% when it came to the white non-college degree voter. Why is this important? I'll get to it in just a second. When we go into the next bracket, you want to look at the base itself, is that Biden has negated this immense Trump base. 41% of the overall votes, it was 45 in 2016, is down 4 points. But when you look at white college educated and Hispanic combined, this is why Democrats want unfettered access of allowing illegal immigrants who then get citizenship into the United States because they will vote Democrat based upon the trends. And that has changed since 1980 under Ronald Reagan, when Republicans wanted unfettered access to immigration. The roles have reversed. But you're seeing a 3-point bump from 2016 to 2020 for Joe Biden. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is single-handedly the most important number that you can look at. Now, when we look at the turnout rate for non-college whites, this is really important. I don't want you to get confused. In 2004, 61.1% of that group turned out and voted. But it has went down exponentially, except for that one little flare-up that you see in 2016. We're 0.8%. What did we see overall in 2020? I showed you it went down. It's at 55.6%. We're expecting also another decrease in 2024. And this isn't good because you look at the expansion of Joe Biden's base when it comes to those college educated and Hispanics, the decrease in Donald Trump's base, but also not turning out. Why aren't they turning out? And this is where you and I can uncover a lot of fun stuff. Now, there's a really interesting poll that just came out from USA Today in Suffolk. This university poll indicates that among Americans who are eligible but unlikely to vote, former President Donald Trump holds a significant lead over President Joe Biden. Now, normally this wouldn't blow my skirt up, so to speak, because you look at these other numbers and you go, well, that's fine, but what does that mean? People who aren't going to vote, what does that matter? Well, the interesting part about this is that the survey, when they went through the individuals who are eligible to vote but tend to abstain from voting, there is a huge difference between the two. Trump's lead is notably stronger. In fact, it is a 2-to-1 lead. And we're talking about millions of people who do not vote, but if they did, they would vote for Donald Trump. Now, the reason why this is a big deal is the poll highlights the impact of Trump's claims about the 2020 election being rigged. It resonates with mainly the people politically disenfranchised, and those are the Americans who don't vote. Among those registered voters who are unlikely to vote, 32% support Trump compared to 13% for Biden, with 27% favoring a third party or other candidate, which means a winnable vote if they did. Similarly, non-registered eligible voters also lean towards Trump by a margin of 28 to 15%, with 27 preferring another candidate. The participation of these unlikely voters could potentially alter the political landscape in Trump's favor, especially given their significant margin of support for him. However, if you disenfranchise these voters and tell them that it's all rigged and it's never going to work and not to vote at all, like we did in Georgia in 2020 and lost the Senate because we disenfranchised the Georgian voter, you're going to see less people voting for Donald Trump. This contrast is evident when compared to the general trend in national polls, such as with Real Clear Politics, their average, which shows nearly a tied race between Biden and Trump. And let's remember, 2020, no matter what you think of it, was only decided by 90,000 votes in really 3 swing states, which we broke down for you on the previous graphs. There's some other ones I want to show you. Non-voters cite various reasons for their lack of participation. Here are the reasons, including dissatisfaction with the candidates, the number one reason, belief in a rigged or corrupt system, and a perception that their vote doesn't matter. 2 out of 3 are owned by the Trump administration and the campaign, who have been touting since 2020 that it is rigged and stolen. But not only that, in 2016, Donald Trump made claims against certain caucuses, one primarily in Iowa against Ted Cruz, that he conceded that Cruz won, but then went ahead a week later and said that he cheated and it was stolen. This narrative has somehow creeped into the conservative movement, and it's disenfranchising voters. The numbers are telling us this. This sentiment is echoed by individuals like Phil Benjamin. He's a conservative and he's leaning registered voter, he's quoted in the article, who feels disillusioned by the perceived integrity issues of the 2020 election. The demographic profile of non-voters differs from that of the 2020 electorate. To motivate these non-voters, better candidate choices and a belief that their vote could swing a close election are key factors, which is probably why you're seeing a change in Donald Trump's overall tone. His concession speech, he curtailed to Nikki Haley's voters, DeSantis voters, and Vivek voters by not slamming them and saying, well, you all lost, you suckers and losers. He congratulated them on a well-fought race and a continued race in the future. That is a different Donald Trump, and one who is embracing the other people who are being voted for, which is a good thing. It's a smart thing to do because obviously they've seen the same numbers that I have. However, a significant number remain skeptical about the value of their vote and the likelihood of their views changing. This narrative needs to change. It needs to happen now. When we look at the rest of the numbers that I promised you, if we take a look at men and women, the biggest issue isn't that Donald Trump lost votes. It's that Joe Biden gained them. From 41%, 48% of voters voting with Hillary Clinton was a 4% increase, yet Donald Trump didn't expand his base. When we take a look at women, we're going to see that it was a 3% increase, but Donald Trump got none of his base. That really is where the election laid. This was the biggest number. This is breaking down to the lowest common denominator, men and women. Even though Democrats believe that there's 64 different genders, we understand that it's broken down into two. And that doesn't really break it down into racial demographics, income, or political ideology. This is simply just men and women and how they vote. When we look at the overall swing states, this is the argument I'm making. This is the thing I would reach out to Donald Trump and say, dude, I know you don't need to listen to me, Mr. President. I wouldn't call him dude. Please listen to me now. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona. Yes, Nevada's thrown in there. Yes, there's a couple other states that obviously might be up for contention, like Missouri, that weren't up for contention in 2020. But this is the interesting thing that you need to really grasp a hold of. These are moderate voters, not independents. These are moderates. These are people who decide the election. 23% of voters in Arizona are moderate. 19% Wisconsin, 19% in Michigan, 15% in Pennsylvania, and 18% in Georgia. Those are the people who are willing to vote for either candidate if pushed in the right direction. The only problem is most of these people don't vote. You've got to actually get them out to vote. When I take a look at why a presidential candidate is extremely important to this overall race, I'm going to break down some basic things and then we're going to get to the nuts straight. Picking a vice president, a VP candidate, is a critical aspect of a presidential race for several reasons. And they can be understood through facts, statistics, and historical examples. Even though no race in the history of races has ever been decided by a vice president, this one is going to be different. You have to balance the ticket. Presidential candidates often choose a VP who complements or balances their own qualities. This can be in terms of ideology, geography, experience, or demographic characteristics. For example, in the 2008 U.S. presidential election, Barack Obama, a younger senator with urban appeal, chose Joe Biden because he was so damn experienced at doing nothing, but he also had a working class background in the eyes of the voter, and as his running mate, added to the security of Barack Obama. Whether you agree with that or not, that's what took place. Appealing to key constituencies. A VP candidate can help in appealing to specific voter groups that might not be the primary base of the presidential candidate. For instance, when George Bush selected Dan Quayle in 1988, part of the strategy was to appeal to younger voters and to solidify support in the Midwest. When we look at campaign effectiveness, a VP candidate often takes a significant role in campaigning, allowing the presidential candidate to cover more ground and engage with more voters. This was evident in the 2016 election, where Mike Pence actively campaigned in key states. And it also contributed to Donald Trump's victory in closely contested areas, especially with the Christian white voters. Policy influence and expertise. Sometimes a VP pick is made to bring specific policy expertise or legislative experience to the ticket. Dick Cheney's selection by George W. Bush, although a war hawk in 2000, is an example, as Cheney had extensive experience in government and foreign policy. Electoral impact. Statistically, the impact of the VP pick on the overall electoral outcome, like I said, is often debated, and most people say it's worthless. However, in some cases, such as Lyndon Baines Johnson and his selection by John F. Kennedy in 1960, it is absolutely unequivocally true that Johnson's appeal in the South helped Kennedy win Texas, which gave him the election. Public perception and confidence is a huge characteristic of your choice of VP, and it can influence perception of the presidential candidate, his judgment or her judgment, and decision-making skills. A well-received choice can boost a campaign, while a controversial or poorly received choice can lead to questions about the candidate's judgment. Let's take a look at Kamala Harris, 1% of the California vote, yet the moment she was announced, Joe Biden pushed away from Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders. It's also because the Democrats don't want Bernie Sanders. Succession and readiness. And this one is a key and critical decision based upon the +1 vote that the vice president holds in breaking a tie in the Senate. It is the first line of succession to the presidency. Therefore, their ability to step into the presidency, if needed, is a critical consideration, especially with the age of both candidates, Donald Trump and Joe Biden. This was notably a point of discussion during Ronald Reagan's presidency, given his age, making George H.W. Bush's readiness for the presidency an important factor. Now, to get to the nuts, because I promised to give it to you straight. Stop shooting yourself in the foot, President Trump. Stop talking about a stolen election. Move on. 2020 is done. Either this election is going to be one that you're going to get behind, or you're not. And if you don't, I've already shown you that the numbers are going to say you don't have a path to the presidency. However, if you change the narrative now and say, yes, our 2020 election did not go the way we wanted. However, we have these steps in place. We have more lawyers, more captains, more polling stations. We're watching closely now, more than ever. And we believe that this election is going to be the fairest in U.S. history. Whether you believe it or not, it's something you should say if you want to win. When you pick the vice president, go with who brings the moderates into the fold. Vivek Ramaswamy is going to bring you Trump supporters. Kristi Noem is going to bring you Trump supporters. If you go with Kari Lake, it's going to bring you Trump supporters. You don't need Trump supporters. You already got them. You need the middle. You need the people who are not going to vote or the people who could vote with the right choice. We have 4 parties in the GOP right now. There are the nobody but Trump. You have the Trump base who can see possibly another candidate in the future, the undecided, and the never Trumpers. Do not pick the same candidate as the head of the ticket. This is the number 1 rule in presidential politics, and it's one that you should follow. The establishment may be a pain in the ass, but all roads lead through them whether you like it or not. And if you want a chance at breaking up the uniparty, you've got to play by the uniparty rules. It was the same in 2016, and Donald Trump played them well. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Vivek Ramaswamy being hugged and patted on the back was a good decision. I don't anticipate him being VP. I could be wrong, but honestly, I think Donald Trump's smart enough to get his voters and then put them out to pasture. Because the last thing Donald Trump wants is Donald Trump 2.0 on the stage stealing his light. He shouldn't. He should have somebody who can support him, who can stand behind him, not in front of him. It's not show friends, it's show business. And this is all business, and it's what Donald Trump is good at. Lastly, Trump can pick who you want and lose, or he can pick who he needs and win. Which do you prefer? Tell me below, and I will love to hear from you as always. Folks, thanks for watching the Don't Unfriend Me show. That is as quick as I can give it to you, and I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, stop by the Don't Unfriend Me show at thedumbshow.com. Pick up a hat, some shirts, some coffee, whatever you would like, and you can use code DUMB10 to save 10%. Also, please follow, like, share, and subscribe. I will see you tonight at 8 o'clock. Olivia and I will be on. We can't wait to see you. Please stop by and say hello live across all social media channels. And thank you, Spreely TV, once again for sponsoring the Don't Unfriend Me show. My name is Matthew Spear, and I will see you tonight.
Adjusting transmitter output.
This is the Don't Unfriend Me show with your hosts Matt, Leroy, Amy, Olivia and Mike. Geopolitics, military analysis and election coverage. Coming to you live on the Spreely.tv network and all major social media channels at The Dumb Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We can agree, we can disagree. Just don't unfriend me.